So I'm here to basically help you all out with your IA exploration. This is something that is a part of the curriculum with math along with a few of your other subjects. So here we go. All right. Take your notes as you need to, and if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to ask. If you want to hold them to the end, you can do that too. All right. So first off, the purpose of the exploration. Okay. You kind of want to know why it is that you have to do this. It really is to develop the ability to ask your own questions about math and answer, okay? Very similar to biology, philosophy, and your other subjects as well. You're going to initiate and sustain a piece of work in math. When you go to the next level, you're going to be asked to write research papers and lab reports and other things like that. And so this is, if anything, is your first experience into that, into what is about to be your future. It's also to experience the relationship between math and other subjects. What you're going to see, well, some of you all may see, depending on what topic you choose, is how math is connected with other subjects. A lot of times, usually with a science, but it can be with humanities, it can be with philosophy, depending on what topic you choose. And of course, to apply math in an area of interest, okay? You'd be surprised at where math actually falls into like your everyday lives, okay? Some people are like, when am I ever going to use this? You'll be surprised when some of the things that you learn are actually used out in the real world. So you're going to be able to apply it to an area that you are particularly interested in. So, what do you write about? Whatever you want, okay? Really and truly, of course, make it appropriate. This is a environment of higher education, right? Okay, but it really is a topic of your choice, okay? You do want to focus it to a specific type of question, not necessarily a research question. That's what your EE is for, okay? But if you've ever wondered, well, is there a relationship between my arm span and how tall I am? Okay, that's like your general question that you're answering, and then your project, your exploration will be based off of basically trying to answer that question. But you don't have to have a research question, but some type of question in mind that you are trying to answer. Okay, and then of course you answer that question by gathering information, data, interviewing people, and using the math to kind of come to that conclusion. Okay, it does not have to be statistics based. Usually applications and interpretation students do choose statistics. It is the easiest, okay? But it doesn't have to be, all right? If you are a swimmer, okay, and you really like to swim, you might even be able to use geometry, okay? Because you learned about sine and cosine graphs at some point. You learned about it last year. You know, you can incorporate that if you're into swimming. You can even use, I had one student one time was really into fashion, and they were trying to figure out, okay, what's the least amount of material I can use to make a size medium shirt, and they use calculus to do that. Okay, I know you guys haven't gotten to calculus, but you know you can incorporate things that you're interested in and associated with the math that you have learned. Are you going to do any of this in class? Yes, you are going to do some of this in class.
You can leave
Question.
You can leave
Okay.
When it says they can write about anything, but they still need to understand, like, if their friends from last year wrote about a certain topic, you can't write about that topic, like you can't repeat their topics.
That is true.
Does that make sense?
That is true. Okay, if a friend of yours wrote about the
shoe size and arm span,
then you can't write about shoe size and arm span. There has to be some distance in between the years of certain topics to be done. So that means that you will submit your topic idea, and of course we'll see if it's been used before, if it hasn't, and then on top of that, you can't repeat amongst anybody within like this cohort. All right. But you will discuss the assessment criteria. You guys will learn how it is that you're graded. You're going to discuss suitable topics and titles. If you say you're like, I really like basket weaving, but I don't know how I can associate that with anything, you can brainstorm those types of things in class. And of course, you just discuss your progress, not with me, but with Ms. Childress. Of course, I can help you if you guys need to, but it's going to be mostly Ms. Childress because she is the one who's going to be grading your stuff. Okay? What do you do on your own? Everything. Really and truly, okay? You guys are the ones who do the planning. You decide, you do the researching, you do the collecting of your information, of your data, you're organizing. How are you going to structure this in your actual essay? Okay, you're gonna be the ones to apply the math. Ms. Childress can't write this for you. She can't do the math for you. She can't even technically check your math until it's the final draft. Okay, but your peers can. Okay, your peers can check your work. Your peers can read your paper and let you know, like, hey, grammatically this doesn't make sense. I actually don't even know what it is that you're writing about, or this is really great. I like this. Okay, demonstrate your math and how you're able to communicate it. Okay, you're gonna do that on your own. You're gonna create your diagrams, okay? You're gonna define the different terms of the particular topic. I remember somebody wrote about like the different elements of a guitar, and I knew nothing about the guitar except what it looked like, okay? You basically are becoming masters in these particular topics, and you're trying to relay this information to others, okay? So remember, not everybody's gonna know it like you do. So you gotta be able to describe it and explain it, all right? There's plenty of things online that can help you. You guys have Google Docs and Google Sheets, so you can make tables. You have different things online that help you create any type of graph that you want to, okay? So you're gonna be using those different things. Personally, I feel that you should use Word if you have access to Word, okay? Because when it comes down to like the formatting, when we actually have to print to send everything off, something between Google Docs and when something usually gets messed up in there, okay? Just kind of keep that in mind, all right? Y'all all right? Okay. How are you gonna be graded? You're graded on 5 different criteria, okay? A is about your presentation, B is your mathematical communication, C is your personal engagement, D your reflection, E is your use of math. And we're gonna go over each of those criteria so you know how it's broken down, okay? Ms. Childress can only help you out, but to a certain extent, okay? She can't tell you whether or not you need to include this or not. She can't tell you which math to use if this is your particular topic. But what she can do, she can show you past IAs. You guys can discuss them, and she can basically critique the mess out of this old IA and essentially tell you what you should and should not do by critiquing that old IA. But she cannot specifically read yours and say, you need to use chi-squared, you need to use this, okay? But I will go ahead and say this. If you are gonna do statistics, chi-squared is to measure dependency.
Thank you.
Correlation is used to see if there's a relationship between 2 variables. So don't say you're gonna find a relationship between these 2 things and do a chi-squared test. Already, you're going down the wrong, you're rolling down the hill versus like lightly jogging, okay? So.
It's a very common mistake.
The most common mistake, and we will say it at least 4 more times, and there will still be somebody that will do a chi-square test, but talking about a correlation. Okay, you can't use that now. Okay, so here we go. Let's be real. Do you really have to do this? Yes, you do. Okay, this is not optional, right? We've hit year 2. We're about a quarter of a way through, okay? This is something that is a part of your IB math grade, okay? It is 20% of your IB grade. You cannot get credit for this course without it, okay? So, how it breaks down, you have paper 1, okay? Paper 1 are your short response questions, right? Anywhere between 6 marks, 7 marks. That's worth 40% of your overall IB grade, okay? Paper 2, those are those long ones, A through F. Y'all know those? Yeah, that's the other 40%. Your exploration, your IA makes up that final 20%, and that is required, okay? Now, it's one thing to turn it in and just do completely horrible and get a 0, but you can still possibly pass the class depending on how well you do in paper 1 and paper 2. I did have a student, the lowest grade I've ever had a student get is a 3 out of 20. That is because the student did the introduction, had some type of structure, had an aim, but everything else after that, like it literally was just 1.5 pages. That's how long their IA was. They got a 3, okay? Please don't be like that student, all right? But as long as you stay on top of things, you turn things in by your respective deadlines, there should be no reason why anybody should not get a passing score, which is the 9 out of 20. It's not a lot to get a 9, okay? But a 9 is a 4, and a 4 is what you need to pass, okay? All right. So let's break it down. Criterion A is out of 4 marks, okay? If any of these criterion aren't met, you'll receive a level 0, which in other words, you don't meet any of the following descriptions, okay? But overall, if you read your IA, it has some type of structure to it, some type of flow to it, you're gonna get a level 1, okay? Some organization, some coherence. If there is some coherence and some organization, then you can get a level 2, okay? Small distinctions between these different words. You have or versus and, okay? So if you have both, you can get a minimum of a level 2. However, if it does read well, it's very coherent, all right? And it's well organized, you can get a level 3. A lot of students get this level, okay? But what really makes you get a level 4, the highest, is this word right here, is concise. Meaning you say what you need to say and you don't fluff it up, okay? Don't be extra, okay? Say what you need to say and continue to move forward, all right? So nothing irrelevant, nothing unnecessary, nothing repetitive. Say what you need to say, and you got a level 4.
Is there a word limit or word max?
There is no word max, and there is no word min, okay? So even more reason, hey, if you can say whatever you need to say within 800 words, it's out, but, you know, then you'll be good to go. Criterion B, that is the mathematical communication, okay? How well are you able to communicate the math that supports your topic? That's out of 4 points as well. For 1, there is some relevant mathematical communication and partially appropriate. Let's say in your introduction, you said that you were going to show a graph of a quadratic that models you shooting a rocket or a little paper rocket or something like that, right? But then you end up doing a linear function, okay? You're somewhere along the right track because you are modeling a function, but it's not a quadratic because a rocket has to come down at some point, right? So there's some mathematical communication. It's not quite appropriate, but level 2 contains some relevant, appropriate mathematical communication. You do happen to model the quadratic, but instead of finding the vertex of the rocket, you end up finding when the rocket hits the ground. But your aim was about figuring out what's the highest thing that it could go, okay? So it's about making sure that you communicate the right mathematical processes per your topic, okay? But most importantly, it needs to be relevant, all right? Are we talking about functions or are we talking about sequences and series? And appropriate and consistent throughout, okay? This is where you'll define your key terms. So if you are talking about something that people don't know commonly about, you want to make sure you define them. This is also where you'll use multiple forms of mathematical representation. This is where you can use your graphs. This is where you can use any diagrams. This is where you can use any equations. Have a large variety, okay? But a level 4 can be achieved. Level 4 can be achieved by only using one form of mathematical representation as long as it's appropriate. You're not penalized for any minor errors that you have as long as it doesn't take away from like the overall answer to the question. Okay. C is personal engagement. I hate this category because students don't know how to communicate on paper the amount of engagement that they have. That's why it's important that you need to pick a topic that you're really interested in because it will come out in your writing, okay? It really will come out in your writing. Like the student I was talking about that did the t-shirt and tried to figure out what's the least amount of material he could use to make this t-shirt. I could tell by his writing, by the diagrams that he chose, by the fact that like he literally broke it down step by step. Like he created the shirt. He basically took it and created it into different geometrical shapes, found the area. Really, that shows your personal engagement. Not saying, oh, I really like fashion design and I want to be a fashion designer. That's great. That's on that some personal engagement, okay? If you want to be on that outstanding, then you just demonstrate an authentic personal engagement in the exploration in numerous instances, not just in the fact that you want to be a fashion designer. In your exploration, he created, hand drew, showed all the cutting out pieces, did all the work, okay? And then of course in the reflection, he had comments and some other things that let us know a little bit more about him, okay? It's evident that these drive the exploration forward in a creative way. It leaves an impression that a student has developed through their approach a complete understanding of the context of the exploration topic, and the reader better understands the writer's intentions. Not too many people will get a 3, but you can get a solid 2, okay? You can get a solid 2. D is your reflection. Hate this one as well, because no matter how many times I'll say do not save your reflection for the end, students will save the reflection for the end, and then on top of that, they'll even title it reflection. Don't do that, okay? Because when you start titling off your paper, that means that that's the only place you can include any type of whatever. So if you say reflection and you write your reflection, that means that there's no other point in that paper that has any type of reflection except in that one section. So be very cautious of how you limit yourself, okay? This is where you'll put in any exclusions. Let's say you do decide to do maybe a statistics IA and you want to compare GPAs to number of hour, numbers of amount of sleep that a student gets on a weekly basis, right? But you decided not to include anybody who does sports because you know that would skew your data, because if they have a game or if they have late practices, you explain your exclusions on why you didn't include those type of people. Any changes, if you were to do this again, what would you change about this exploration, okay? Maybe I would actually go to Disneyland and actually stand in line instead of collecting data off the internet, all right? Any limitations? Let me see. One student wanted to figure out if there was a correlation between the number of red lights ran and car accidents at this one particular intersection. Well, the student wanted to go out and actually, like, every day after school from like 3:30 to 4:30, wanted to actually see how many times this one particular light was ran and how many car accidents occurred there in that one particular hour. Well, there's several limitations to doing that, and that's exactly where that student listed it, okay? Not necessarily in the reflection section, but throughout had mentioned how he wasn't able to go out on this one particular day because we ended up going into lockdown or something, okay? But that's where you include any types of those limitations. Any links to different fields, if this can be used in physics, if this can be used in humanities, this is where you would get some additional credit. And it can be throughout your entire paper to get a level 3, okay? Substantial evidence of critical reflection. There's so many ways you can get a level 3, okay? So many ways. Last but not least, criterion E, which is the largest one, is actually out of 6 marks. I only have 3 up here right now. The other 3 are on the other page. Again, make sure that you're using the right math for the right topic, okay? Because it has to be relevant, all right? It has to be commensurate with the level of the course. Prior knowledge things like area of 2-dimensional figures. Area of 2-dimensional figures. Linear equations, like your basic, like y equals mx plus b. All of those will be considered prior knowledge, okay? And if you look at the guide that Ms. Childress will post, there's even topics that go for prior knowledge. Anything there, the highest you're gonna get is a level 2. Okay, remember it's out of 6 marks. But if you want to do chi-square, if you want to do Bernoulli, if you want to do Spearman's rank, if you want to do calculus, all of that is commensurate with our course, and you can get higher marks, okay? You have to show a strong understanding, either good, some, or thorough, to get these higher marks, okay? And then, of course, the math has got to be correct. So if you actually do the calculations, it has to be correct.
I throw an example, like on correlation coefficient, there were some that would say, I don't know if y'all remember, but a correlation coefficient are between 2
one, but
-1
to positive one.
That's what it's between. So as soon as they got a correlation coefficient of negative
4 point.
4 point whatever, they automatically, okay, well, obviously you don't know the rules of correlation coefficient.
And so, boom, that's not showing any type of understanding, knowledge of the topic, okay? So if you need to go back and make sure that, okay, if I'm gonna use this, I gotta know it and know it well, all right? So to recap, these are your different criteria. Presentation is a max of 4. Mathematical communication is a max of 4. C and D are a max of 3, and the last one, bringing it home, is a 6, okay? So, it's very easy to get 9 marks to get that passing score, but again, this is worth 20% of your grade. If you're already sitting on the borderline of a potential 3 or 4, this IA can help boost you or bring you down, okay? A few other things that are some good basics to know. You can use I. This is not a formal paper, okay? So you can't say, I am going to do this. Usually, an IA is between 6 to 12 pages because you do include diagrams and equations and tables and charts and all types of things. There is no word count. Usually not over 2,000 words, okay? But I'm not saying that's what you gotta hit. No, say what you need to say and be done with it. Double or single space. Personally, I prefer double. I'm gonna ask my students to turn in double because when I provide comments and feedback, I need the space to say, hey, this is where, you know, you might need to fix something. It does look better. Summarize data if you have a lot of pages, okay? There are no attachments, there are no appendices, okay? So if you are gonna do something that's statistics-based, you're gonna collect data, you have to figure out the best way to maybe condense it down into a frequency table. Speak well and spell check. I don't know what's up with students nowadays to say a butterfly flies into, what's wrong with the sentence that I'm writing?
It's capitalized.
Why do y'all do that? That drives me, don't capitalize every first letter of every word. The only letter should be capitalized are the first letter in the sentence. Proper nouns, we capitalize our I's. Please make sure that we do this, okay? You are penalized for grammar and typos that's in your presentation, so please make sure that you use spell check. Cite your sources. If you do pull something off the internet, Wikipedia is not a valid source. Cite it like you would in your EE and things like that. And do not use the asterisk to represent multiplication. Use the binary X, use parentheses, use the pi symbol. Do not use the caret. Use a superscript. Use the actual equation editor to create these different equations. You are penalized for these different things, okay? Use proper notation. Other than that,
Don't use E, right, for scientific?
do not use E for scientific, okay? So if your number is a really large number, you know that E that's on the back end of your calculator, that's 10 to the 4th power, okay? So don't use this, use this, okay? Are there any questions?